Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. Welcome to Good, Brave, and Heroic. So today we're doing part two. Part two to discuss things that we wish we knew. So it's just a continuation. If you didn't catch the first part, you should, so that you know what we're gonna head into now. Because we kind of left that one unfinished. So.
Yeah. So last time we spoke about things that we wish we knew as a child, then as a teenager. And today we're going to cover things we wish we knew before we were single. No.
When we were single.
When we were single, not before we were single. When is before you were single? When you were single, before we got married, and before we had kids. And so that should be a really good conversation. Why don't we start off with a recent highlight, something that was really good for you recently?
I think the Christmas celebrations have been very fun, or like the Christmas time, like the season, because the girls have they think Christmas has been every day for like the past 5 days.
They're still Christmas. They're
Christmasing.
Still Christmasing.
And that's been really fun. We've done something. We did something like every day for like 4 days. So that's been really fun to do with them. It's just enjoyable to watch them really get Christmas and understand it. And, or for the most part, understand it, like gifts and being with family and all that. So their excitement has been really cool. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say the same thing, but I was going to say the same thing. This was the first year that I think that Kaya really, really got it. Like, she was like, oh, yeah, this Christmas thing is legit. And I feel like Lily just kind of piggybacked off of that energy and was just like, we out here. You know, Lily had a heavy we out here energy for Christmas.
She was also like, Kaya didn't do this. Lily was trying to open gifts.
Oh my goodness.
She was peeking into gifts.
She was not like...
And she knew she shouldn't have been.
She was relentless. She was not giving up. She was just like, I need to be in here and figure out what's in this thing.
And she knew how to open them too. Yeah. Kaya was just kind of like, all right, what do I do with this?
Yeah. So that was really interesting to see the differences in your kids. But transitioning from the magic as a kid that you have, because I've always loved Christmas. It's my favorite holiday. Transitioning from it being magical for you and then being able to see your kids, that's like a special thing. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me. So last time we left off talking about your thing that you wish you knew as a teenager. And you were just talking about like a little bit about like being able to be firm in your decisions and in knowing who you are. And being able to stick to what you believe about yourself, even things like a lot of things that you were into or talented in, you kind of just got thrown into them rather than you really pursuing them and being, I guess, like the act of pursuing it. Does that make sense? Was that what it was for you, or was it confidence?
I think it was probably like a mix of both things, because I always kept those things so quiet, like things that I was maybe really good at or really enjoyed. I kept it to myself. Anything that kind of put me like in the center by myself.
Yeah. I
was like, ooh, we don't like that. Yeah. I never really liked the limelight. It's funny because it's mixed. When I finally am there, though, I have like these other emotions I can't really describe that just like roar out of me, and I'm like, this is nice. Not like, hey, everyone look at me, but more so like I'm enjoying myself. And I start feeling like all this creativity just bursting out, and I just like feel it in my chest, and it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. But it's also a scary thing because it's like, oh my God, you're all looking at me. Why? It's a scary thing. So And it's funny because, like, for example, I think one thing that I was always nervous about, but I didn't struggle like that with, was acting. Love acting.
I remember
Always
you doing a
love
lot of
acting.
skits in church.
Always
When we
put
were
me
growing
in
up.
all of them. And I was, as much as I could be, I was always in all of them, and I enjoyed the heck out of them. Especially improv, that was my favorite.
Improv is fun.
Yeah. And I loved doing it, but I think it was just easier for me to tap into, like, being someone else. Maybe? I don't know.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense because you're putting yourself in someone else's mindset.
Maybe.
So you can kind of like brush your fears and insecurities to the side.
I guess that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now thinking about how when you were single, you know, more in your 20s, and more so like not necessarily that, maybe even when you were dating somebody, but just like pre-marriage when you're an adult. What's one of the things that you wish you knew, like in those 20s, the years of your 20s, after high school, college time, still going to church and all of those things, but you know, just living a life of singleness. Like I said, it doesn't really matter if you were dating somebody, because singleness and the way that we're talking about it is like more so
Before marriage.
yeah, just before marriage.
You're still single while you're dating.
Yeah, because you might be dating somebody, but you're you. You go home to you, you know, and you're still not living with another person. Like you know, some people do, but in our case, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, during that time, like what's something that you just wish you knew?
I'm going to tell you something I wish I had. So watching my brother go through singleness and getting to know people, getting to know women, and possibly pursuing a woman has been, it's been really nice to witness because he has us, which is helpful, and you know we were there not too long ago where he is, and he asks us questions and he's very interested. He reaches out to people. He has a mentor. He's really interested in being very intentional in his journey of singlehood and his journey in Christ, and honoring his wife when she gets here.
Yeah.
And I've really admired how intentional he's been, like just with every action that he wants to take or he's taken, he asks us for feedback, or his mentor, and he talks about like, hey, okay, like I want to make sure that I'm going at the right pace. Is this too much? What am I communicating with this? How can I communicate this? And I wish I had that.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it comes from you where you have to take the initiative to do that. I don't think we thought of that. I think our goal was just, are you evenly yoked? Which is, you know, super important. And then we kind of just figured it out.
Right.
But that like guidance that he has, that very intentional step by step that he's been taking and learning through, I wish I had that.
Yeah. During that time, I really can't say that we had access to a couple that was a few years into their marriage and was seasoned in the faith and like just like articulate and, you know, that has tools.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it was, so there's this, you really only get counseling for marriage right when you're engaged. You get premarital counseling.
Right.
And then there's nothing really before that, like maybe your church does things like groups and then they separate the guys and the girls and stuff like that, but you don't really have anything formal like that. Not that we have something formal with him, but it's a consistent thing that he can go to.
Yeah, he can tap into it whenever he wants. So, what would you say to your younger self or to somebody who's listening who does not have access to that? What would you maybe encourage? Like, what would you have encouraged yourself to do? Because I guess you're basically seeing, not necessarily that you lacked something, but just how much of an upside comes from having access to something like that, right? And so, what would you say to yourself as far as like, go out looking for people, or what would you say?
I mean, I guess it also depends on your personality. I think for me, and I think this is kind of what we did. It's a mix of looking for the tools outside. So now podcasts exist, so you have podcasts that you can...
Yeah, you could get it really indirectly.
Yeah, you can get it that way. You can read books, although reading wasn't always my thing. You can... I don't know. I think what we've really encouraged my brother to do, too, is to go out and look for people to interview or talk with, whether it's like a one-time thing or it's a consistent thing. So that would be my encouragement.
Because you mentioned podcasts, I just want to throw out some podcasts that people can listen to. With the Perrys.
Oh, yeah.
Is excellent. That's with Jackie Hill Perry and her husband. Why am I forgetting his name? I feel terrible for that.
I have a name, but I know it's not right, so I'm not even going to say it.
I'm going to spend too much time thinking about it. When I realize it, I'm going to be upset. But With the Perrys is a great podcast. You can see that one on YouTube. The Basement, right, which recently moved to their own app, but you can still listen to the audio for free, if I'm not mistaken. They have a lot of stuff that is good for people of all age or life situations. And there was a podcast we used to listen to.
Fierce Marriage?
Yeah, Fierce Marriage. They changed the name, though. I think it's like Fierce...
They did?
Life or something like that. But they're the Fredericks. So
Yeah.
it'd be like, if you type in Fierce Marriage in YouTube, you'll find them, if I'm not mistaken. You have our podcast, too, right? You know, which we're still building. But, you know, we hope we could be a resource to people. And, yeah, those are, like...
Really good
excellent
ones.
For like relationships and just
life in
general. That you could really, really, really build with. There's also this other one. They just started. They were on an episode with the Perrys, and then they ended up starting their own because people were like, yo, this was mad good, yeah, I need a podcast. And I was listening to one and they were pretty solid, but I have to look them up because I don't remember their name. If you really, really, really want to grow spiritually, like hardcore, you could listen to Preston Morrison. But he's gonna wreck your life. You better be committed if you're going to. It's called The Leader's Cut with Preston Morrison, and just to not like kill everybody's time, the last one is Hanging with the Fabians. Yeah, hanging with the Fabians. They were recently on With the Perrys. And ended up doing their own thing. So Preston Morrison, Preston Hill, Jackie Hill Perry, and Preston Perry. So that was his name. I looked it up real quick because it was killing me. But those are some like excellent resources. Don't like turn your brain off. Like you need to be feeding your mind, and those are podcasts that we listen to here and there. And that could really like feed your faith and just help you to like live well, right? Because you like when you said that, I was like, wow, yeah, that's true. Like, podcast is such an excellent resource now.
Yeah, it is.
Like back then, we didn't have access to people. And when you said that, I felt the same. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had that as well.
And the people that we did look up to, I mean, we also didn't really have reliable transportation, so you have to take that into consideration. It's not that people wouldn't want to be available, but you know, they were older, so they had kids, or you know, like they were really busy in their lives. So
Yeah.
it's difficult, especially when those people are so far from you and you don't have like transportation, for instance. I think one thing I've talked about with a friend before that I want to point out, I'm just going to throw it out there. Something I wish I knew is that marriage isn't the end goal. Because I feel like in your singleness, you're either pushed or by whatever or whoever, to find your spouse, as if once you find your spouse,
everything's
good, you're good, you don't have struggles, you have made it happily ever after, that's where it ends, and everything else is smooth sailing, and it's not like that at all. I wish that would have been, I don't know.
I'd like the church did a better job with that.
I wish everyone did a better job with that. Everyone. Because there's this like hyper focus on finding your spouse. And yes, it's a very, very important decision. So you do have to be very careful about it, but it's not the only goal in life.
Right.
And it's not the end goal either.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I would have known that.
Yeah. Like I think that there's this like general consensus or just culture of the idea that marriage is somehow going to fix you. And so single people are urged to or feel pressured to constantly be in search for who they're going to marry. Mm-hmm. And so instead of spending all of your time thinking about working towards looking for someone else and that being your focus, I think that when you're single, instead your focus should be God and yourself.
Yeah, because you want to be ready for that.
Because you want to be ready for that, right? Because now you step into a marriage and you have all this junk that you didn't deal with, and that stuff is going to come out, and it's going to come out twofold. That's what happened with me, you know, and it wasn't even like it wasn't like a negligence thing. It's just that I was dealing with all of these things, wasn't aware how stressed they were making me. And because we were building up towards a marriage, I think I was riding the coattails of that, like, joy. Mm-hmm. And then once we got married,
reality hit.
All this stress that I was like ignoring and not paying attention to, not even aware of how much it was affecting me, boom, 2 months into our marriage, I'm severely depressed.
And not because of our marriage, but because of a lot of things that happened.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with our marriage. It just had to do with stuff I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And that's like an extreme example, but the single person needs to take, like, if you're single, you need to take care to do everything in your power to heal. Do everything in your power to grow. Mm-hmm. And trust God's faithfulness to bring someone in your path, right? How unfortunate would it be for you to meet somebody, and just because it might be God's will for you to be with that person doesn't mean you can't mess it up. Right? So imagine you're not ready for it, or you're a whole mess, and that's it. It goes out the window.
You start to sabotage the goodness that it can be, or it's not that it's impossible, because you can't walk into something 100% ready all the time. But if you don't, if you don't want to make it harder either. So it is still, God is still God, and however you walk into the relationship, whether you're super healed, growing, whatever, I don't know, whatever your mindset is, wherever you're at, God is still God, and we have to submit all of our flaws, our shortcomings, our marriage, our everything to Him. And as I feel like as long as we do those things and continue to submit humbly, just accept, I need you, God. Like, I need help for this to grow. Because you have to do that whether you're doing well and you're doing all the right things and
Right.
you are growing and you are seeking for healing and you are in therapy and you still have to submit yourself because you're never done. So if the attitude of being submissive to God and being humble to God and knowing that you're never done is there, however you started, it can still work. but don't wait. Don't wait to be in a relationship for things to be fixed. That's not fair to the other person or to you.
No. Yeah, because the other person, they're not responsible for your happiness. They're not responsible for your happiness. They're not responsible for making you whole. They might be a piece of that, but really that's something that you have way more responsibility over, and God has way more responsibility over. Like putting that on the other person. I think there's a lot of times that people place all this weight on another person. They just want them to fix them. Some people just want to fix another person. They feel like that's their whole purpose, and it's not fair. Which, for this is like a perfect segue for me, because for me, what I wish I knew when I was single, I wish I knew more about myself. I've talked before about how, for me, growing up, my struggle was sexually. Like, I struggled with being pure, and it wasn't until more recently, through going to therapy, that I realized why some of that was. And back then, I kind of knew that something was going on. Like, I knew that it wasn't just like a struggle thing, right? It wasn't just, oh, this is like my sin, my thorn in the flesh, for lack of a better way of saying it, because I didn't really struggle with things that my peers were struggling with, to other degrees. But with that, I was struggling a little bit more than my peers, or allegedly, right? So, but I just wish I knew more about myself, and I wish that I knew that it was me trying to fill a hole. It was me trying to feel loved, to feel like for a moment, somebody's not going to leave me. And that's rough. And I'm still learning more about that. I feel like God is uncovering a lot of the pain that is associated with some of the things in my childhood, and having to spend a lot of time alone, feeling alone, feeling like abandoned, and all of these things that I felt growing up, bullied as well. All of those things culminated in me having to, or growing up wanting to take back some control. And I think everybody has something like that. They have something from their childhood that they feel they didn't have control over. Mm-hmm. And so they start growing up, and they start getting some autonomy. They start getting some ability to make decisions. And so now they start to make decisions that aren't necessarily what they want, really, and how the person they want to be. But they make those decisions. They do so because they're trying to gain back the control that they feel they lost as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe if I would have known that when I was single, because I wanted so badly to wait until marriage. I wanted so bad. Like, I think I wanted to be like the perfect Christian, which is not necessarily the best thing. But I also really wanted it for two reasons. I wanted it because I wanted to please God in that area. Excuse me. And I also wanted to honor my future wife. Hello, hi. And while it was extremely difficult for me, I feel like if I would have known that, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. I don't know. Maybe I would have healed through it. Then again, everything happens for a reason. I understand that God allowed it for me to learn it at this time. I don't know why. But now that I know it just provides so much insight, even though I'm just starting to learn that. It provides so much insight into so many of the decisions that I made and areas that I struggled in and things that I did to try to feel control of my life, or to try to feel loved, or to try to feel powerful, even to feel like I had control. And I don't think a lot of people get there. A lot of people, because a lot of people won't ever go to therapy, unfortunately. Even less than that, a lot of people do not do soul searching. They don't spend time trying to understand themselves, which I think are things that are immensely valuable. But in doing so, you're able to understand things about yourself that you would have never understood. You think you just know yourself, and in reality, you don't. There are areas of you that other people know better because they're able to see them. They're blind spots.
Yeah.
There are things that nobody knows because only God knows them, because he knows your innermost being. And I just wish that while being single, I would have been a little bit more aware of some of the ways that I was acting out and the reasons why, in hopes that I would be able to pursue healing in those areas through looking for God and looking for just joy in him, which I really struggled with. I still in many ways struggle now. Like, I definitely want to please God. I definitely want to serve him. But sometimes it becomes so much about what he said to do and being obedient that when I'm trying to be obedient, I'll be struggling because I'm only thinking about this is what I need to do, rather than realizing I also want to do it because it'll please him, because I'm serving him, which is like another side of the same coin. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so enjoying the adventure rather than looking at it as a arduous trail.
Exactly, because when there is the obedience side. There's this is what God told me to do and I need to do it. But that's only one side of the coin. It's also, he also told me to do it because he wants to bless me and because it'll bless him when I do it. And then other people will be blessed too.
And along the way, you don't want to miss out on so many little moments that add up to the end goal for that time period.
Yeah. And it happened to me this morning. I still can't hear out of my left ear because it's dumb ear infection. We're still dealing with the cough. We're still dealing with the congestion, even though we're not technically sick anymore.
Perfect. Time to say this. I'm sorry, I was checking my phone because our moms were texting. Kaya does have a fever. So I was telling them where the thermometer was, the Tylenol. So they're keeping an eye. But yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. I
Great.
hope she doesn't get worse. Yeah. But this morning I feel like I need to rest.
Me too.
Because I'm thinking just being obedient, and I'm just I feel like I am just struggling to get along, struggling to get here, struggling to even think straight. And I want to get some momentum going again. And this is what my mind's thinking about this morning.
Oh my God.
What?
You know what verse just came to my mind?
What?
Oh my goodness, I forget where. It's obviously in the New Testament, but I forget where it is. The verse that talks about that you're saved by grace and, it's not through works. So we can take something, even in the middle of being obedient and doing something that God is telling us to do, and turn it into a list of chores and fail that way. And fail in just wanting to accomplish it because God said so. So now, I'm gonna get to the end goal because I have to earn it.
Right.
I have to earn my end goal, rather than seeing that God is giving us this adventure by grace because
And
it's
my mind is
there to
always in earn it
persevere.
mode.
It's always an earn it. And God's like, I don't want you to work for it. I'm doing the work.
Right.
This is an adventure for you to grow through so you can develop character and perseverance and endurance. And the end goal is that you grow and you heal and whatever it is that he wanted you to get to arrive at, it is what it is. That's just a plus, it's a bonus. But we are working toward our salvation. We're working toward that, whatever the end goal is.
Yeah.
My mind is blown.
No, and that's exactly what was happening this morning. I was in earn it mode. I've been in earn it mode for so long. I've just been like, need to be obedient. And while that's only one side of the coin, right? The other side is the blessing that it is to be obedient. The blessing in obedience is that you bless God by being obedient. The blessing is that obedience leads to his favor. The blessing is that through your obedience, other people are blessed. So my thought this morning was, I could take the day off and rest. Like I always told you, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay. You have the thing that you have to go to. We've been missing weeks like crazy already. Let's just try to start the new year strong. And like completely justified, I think, because we've been sick on and off since
End of September.
the end of September. And it's like, something's got to give, right? But then I was like, wait a minute. If we make this episode, one person might be blessed by it. And that's enough. And let me tell you how that filled me with all the energy I needed, plus the coffee. Those two things together gave me all of the energy I needed. Because I also woke up 5 times last night. I don't know if you noticed.
Me too.
So I didn't sleep well. But it gave me everything I needed. Because now I'm like, oh. And so I think that if a person listening to this might be thinking like they're just so focused on being obedient to God, don't forget the joy in obedience.
That's good.
Don't forget the adventure God is inviting you to. Because God is not inviting you is not calling you to be obedient just because he's trying to crack a whip over your head so that you go and do what he's saying. No, it's also him inviting you to an adventure with him. He's your best friend. He loves you with an insurmountable love and is inviting you to follow him. And we can sometimes hear that call and see it as a burden because we're just thinking, I just gotta be obedient. And there are times where there's gonna be things you don't wanna do and you just gotta do them. But you're always gonna see how beneficial it was. And if you could just think about how it blesses God, about how it blesses others, it might help you to step into it.
Yeah, the verses that come to my head when you talk about obedience is, that reminds me of 2 verses to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think obedience is that right there. It's obedience out of love for God, and because it's also an extension of loving others. It's a way to love God and love others, which is what God calls us to do.
Right. So I guess we're doing a part 3.
Yeah.
But this one will just be what I wish I knew when I was single.
Mm-hmm.
And next week we'll do marriage and kids.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We can fit both.
Let's have faith. Let's have faith. We've been trying to change the way that, what is it we've been trying to change? Like just the whole like
No, I mean
talk.
hopefully we can fit both into one because they
yeah. I mean those might be individual episodes too. But either way, we will try. And we hope that this episode blessed you guys. And if you are single, that singleness is a great time for you to get so much done. That's like, I could make like 5 episodes just on things that I could. Like,
Let's talk about this.
There's a lot that I wish I would have done when I was single, that would have just set me up for the next phase of my life. But either way, we hope this episode bless you, like I said, and you guys have an amazing week. Peace.